Our generation has witnessed some amazing technological advances. None are as powerful or as disconcerting as artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has roared in faster than anyone anticipated. It's creating images, it's creating essays, it's creating content, it's creating music and video. It is a powerful tool no matter what you're doing, but there is a definite element of loss of control. The first thing we need to do is understand what artificial intelligence is. And to help me with that is Jonathan Hill, who's in the reptile industry, but he is a data scientist, and he works with artificial intelligence in the course of his job. Jonathan's going to come on and give us a basic understanding of what artificial intelligence is and what it could mean for us. My name is Bill Strand. Welcome to the Reptile Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello, reptile entrepreneurs. I am here with Jonathan Hill, and we're going to talk about a very intriguing subject. Hello, Jonathan.
Hey, Bill.
Well, Jonathan, there is this crazy thing called AI, artificial intelligence, and for lack of anything else, we're going to blame you for it. And so but
Thanks.
I mean, you're responsible for it. All right, so the big thing is we have this AI. We hear all about this AI, and very few of us, me included, truly understand what it is, and we're just now barely grasping what we can do with it. And so I am hoping that you can help illuminate the situation. And to start off, could you explain to the viewing audience here what it is that you do with AI?
Cool. Yeah, so I work on a team of data scientists where we review machine learning models that are used in financial services. So machine learning models that are used to determine if people are approved or declined for credit cards, whether or not you get your line increased. All of those decisions are run by machine learning models. And my job is to take a look at those models and see if I can make them better, find problems with them, look at the governance of the model, and try to come up with any issues that I can see with that model. So I go around my company and spend some time essentially trying to break stuff. And then if I find any issues, then that's my job, is just to go in there, take a look at things at different across the business. Some of them credit cards, auto loans, commercial loans, you name it. Take a look at the models and see if I can find any problems. So that's my day job.
All right, Jonathan, I am actually trained as an electronic engineer, and I did a lot of software coding in my day. So I'm familiar with software. Now, this is artificial intelligence. It's just software, but something about it has raised it above what standard software is. What is different about AI that it gets this entirely new designation and has these incredible capabilities?
Well, the big thing about AI compared to traditional software is that it is trained on the entire internet, essentially. So the goal is to consume as much information as possible and then to be able to understand the context and meaning of all of that data, which was something that we couldn't do before. Usually, so throughout most of my career, machine learning models, we needed to find data for a specific problem. So we needed to find the correct data set in order to answer a specific question. So you'd spend all this time trying to find data that matched the question and answer that you actually were seeking. And one of the big differences that we were able to see today is that we were able to essentially get past that challenge of needing to find specific data sets to answer specific questions. We now have the ability to take data, turn it into a standard structure that every model can understand and not just understand what it is, but understand the context, understand the meaning. All of those things are broken out into a multi-dimensional array if you want to get into the technical part of it. But basically, there's every part of the data set is broken out into a standard structure that you can use to understand text, to understand audio, to understand video, to understand any type of data that you can find. So, for example, I remember the first time that I had to build a model to try to classify MRIs as to whether or not they were cancerous or not cancerous. So it's a very simple model just saying, yes, cancer, no cancer. And the way that we used to work with data was we would take that image and we would turn it into a numeric value for each pixel in the picture. So the only thing you got from a data standpoint was a big matrix that was now a numeric representation of the picture.
Okay.
But you didn't have any meaning. You didn't have any understanding of what that picture was. You were just saying, based on the color, we will give it a number in that pixel. And so it was very noisy. The data was not very useful, and the models were not as good. But today what we'll do is we'll take that image and we'll extract entire matrices for context, like what is it? Where is it? All of the different questions you could potentially have about that picture are now represented by an array of numbers that you can use mathematical equations on. And so that's the big revolution that we've seen in the short term, is going from this old school representation of images, of text, of you name the data source, that old school kind of rigid one-dimensional representation of it, to a multidimensional and complex standard that you can use for every type of data. And that by itself was what helped to revolutionize models from the old school methods that people are more familiar with and the new ones that you would classify as AI.
Okay. You're using the word revolutionize, and I think that's appropriate, at least to outside the community, the machine language learning community. It seems like this happened suddenly. Is this something that's been slowly growing behind the scenes, or did this surprise everybody?
It surprised almost everybody, yeah. I think that's fair to say, because people didn't really understand the power of this new data standard for representing basically all types of information. What we started to see, and it was not by design, we started to see it in test results. Like, people would take a model that was trained on video and then try to do what's called zero-shot learning. So predictions on something the model has never seen. So you train the model on data that was video, and then you try to use that same exact model to do something like translate Portuguese and English. It's never seen Portuguese, and it can do it. And the reason, and nobody could predict that. Nobody could predict that the model would be capable of zero-shot learning, essentially making predictions and understanding context outside of the data set that you gave it. So you give it video, but now all of a sudden it can translate really well.
All right,
and that was the thing that nobody predicted.
As being a classically trained engineer, I have to work so hard. I had to work so hard on a circuit. I designed the circuit. I programmed the microcontroller. And back then, I actually did it by binary language, assembly language. So, going to date me on this one. But everything I did, it was like Herculean effort to make it do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
it is an incredibly foreign thing to hear these engineers and designers go, "Oh, I didn't know it could do that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
And it's because of this numeric representation of everything that is a standard notion to work off of. Because once you're using that, you use that standard, then all of a sudden you could start. You basically, the limitation is how smart is the model, not what is the context or what is the data. So that's the thing that really revolutionized things is by then now that's why we're focused on essentially trying to fit as much data as possible into that model to make it very smart so that it understands the context of the question and the problem. And then the main thing that people are working on now, so like Sora, for example, everyone's probably heard of Sora, but
let's
basically
give a brief.
I'll give a brief description of what it is, and you can Google it. But Sora is you give it text, you describe the scene that you want, and then it can produce a realistic video with what you describe. So you could say, I want to hear Bill Strand talk for 20 minutes, exactly 20 minutes, about fogging. And Sora will go and create a video. I think right now it's limited to 60 seconds. So it would fail at the 20-minute request, but okay. Regardless, it can create a very realistic 60-second segment, and they're going to be able to increase that up to 20 minutes pretty soon. I'd say probably within the next 6 months. But yeah, that's what Sora does. It takes an instruction and it produces a realistic video.
Okay, just for once again, the people on the other side, the notion that we, humankind, has created something that is doing something that we didn't expect. Yeah. Where I know nobody can answer this because we didn't expect it. Where does this go?
Yeah, I don't. That's a really good question. I think no one really knows. That's anyone who suggests that they do know where that goes is it's saying that the premise is false. that we actually know what we're going to do with this thing. So
I guess we can save that for later as to what the future looks like. Perhaps we'll start off. Let's talk about what it means for us right now, and for our audience is now people in the reptile community who are content creators. Mm-hmm. Who are businesses who want to work on social media, who have to put together websites, who are battling against websites popping up with half-baked information. How is this AI, as it's available to the layperson, how is it going to affect our content creation?
So there's two ways it'll affect us. In one way, it competes with us. So some nefarious actor can use it to compete with us, even though they have no understanding of the domain. So that's the negative side of it, is that there are already a ton of these types of people in organizations on the internet that are entirely AI generated, fake. Their only goal is to get traffic and try to make some money off of the ads on the website. You can recognize them very clearly because of the number of ads on their website. It's just a bunch of trash mixed with ads, hoping you click them and then they can get some money. And that's one way, is those websites are already blowing up. And some of the ones that I didn't even realize are, I thought that they were supposed to be about medicine, but now they've got this whole section on reptiles and chameleons that's all AI generated just to boost their rankings and things like that. And so I think that there's going to be blowback on some of those guys. Is their brand is not reptiles. You can see on their domain name, it makes no sense for reptile content to be there. Right?
It doesn't matter. So, when somebody is typing in Google chameleons, they don't care what the rest of the website is.
I mean, I do, but I'm weird, I guess. I see based
You
on your
care about the
domain name.
source, Jonathan?
Yeah, I know it's weird. I'm a sort. I
What's
look
wrong
at
with you?
sources and try to judge the authority of the information that
What are
I'm
you, Google?
consuming. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I think that there, as people become more familiar with how to recognize AI generated content, they will start to notice these things, and then there will be some blowback for anyone who overreaches. Um, and so that I think is what's coming. But in the meantime, there's still some short term gain that they can get through traffic and ads and stuff.
Yeah, I would hope that's the case. Unfortunately, the general internet populace has not given me a whole lot of hope. I mean, we already have people that scrape social media to create, and they throw it all together, and they create a website that's AdSense and ads all over the
Oh yeah.
place, and those
Yep.
are being quoted in the community as authoritative just on the basis that they exist on the internet. So
Yeah.
how do you think we in the community will develop the skills to identify AI or or care?
Um. I mean, I think that the more people get burned by it, the more they're going to be careful about it. And obviously, it's so new that people haven't had the chance to get burned.
Mm.
They haven't had the chance to get scammed. They haven't had the chance to, you name it. But as soon as those things start happening, then I think that people are going to get smarter, and obviously people are going to get scammed. Um, the that's going to kind of go that way. But I guess the way that I think about it, there's two main perspectives on this challenge. It's like you could have the techno optimist view, or you can focus on all of the new challenges that this technology brings. Um, the techno optimist side of it is that people who actually do have the domain knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
if they utilize these tools, all of a sudden making content became that much easier for them, and
So
they sh-
let's.
they they should be able to like leverage it, right?
How would we do that? So, like, how would my Chameleon Academy, I can
Mm-hmm.
go to Chat GPT and I can start typing in questions, and the answers I get make it obvious that they've gone to my website and they have assimilated the wording and such. You know, there's some things
Yeah.
that I came up with and only I use, and now it's showing up on Chat GPT. So,
Yeah.
how would someone like me use artificial intelligence to help me with my outreach?
So the way that you can use it is obviously taking some of the things that take a lot of your time. So whether that be photo editing or video editing or even writing summaries of your video, that's already being done with AI through certain software. Um, a lot of the tedious tasks, you should be able to automate a lot more of them. And those types of things you should be able to do a lot faster. Um, that's huge benefit to us. So like for example, I was just messing around on my website over the past month, and there are certain things where it's just you can almost use it for brainstorming, right? You say give me 5 different ways of doing this, or 10 different ways of doing that, and then it tells you a bunch of different ideas, and you as the expert can look through them and figure out which one is the best,
Mm-hmm.
right? The AI doesn't know that yet because they don't know the domain as well as we do. And so you can leverage it for brainstorming. You can leverage it to get rid of some of the redundant tasks that you don't want to spend your time doing. I mean, I bet you could tell stories of what it was like to do some of this editing 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, and how it is today. I think that it's just going to get faster and easier to do that. So that's an advantage for us. I think that the other thing that's going to be coming is so the SEO right now, it already penalizes you for all sorts of things. I am waiting for the AI SEO penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what that means is search engine optimization. When a search engine is looking for legitimate content, if they see stuff that looks AI generated, downgrade that content, make it so that people don't see it as much. And so that, I believe, is absolutely in the future, not currently something that's being done, but I think that for sure it's going to be something that happens. And so if you as a creator are using it to speed up your content generation, but modifying it in a way that it's clear that it's your work, then you would not get that penalty. Whereas anybody who actually is just using a bot to generate everything, they're going to get that penalty. And so I think in the world, as this becomes more ubiquitous, it already is pretty ubiquitous, but as it becomes more ubiquitous, there's going to be changes to many of the algorithms out there, because the things that are best at finding AI is another AI.
Yeah,
And
and we've heard this with Instagram and Google. They are
yeah,
working on AI detection, but how do we have AI finding AI and then AI trying to hide itself from AI? How does that all work?
yeah. Well, that sounds a lot like spyware.
Spy versus spy. Yes.
Yeah, viruses over. I mean,
Uh-huh.
we've had
Yeah.
viruses and spyware defense software for decades, and it's the same arms race. It's like you can get rid of the old stuff, and then something new pops up, and a new version of the spyware comes out and finds it. And I think that that's what's in the future for AI for sure, is an arms race of sorts.
Okay. So AI is a software program.
Mm-hmm.
Is this program something? I mean, we hear about Chat GPT, but we have so many different services and websites that'll do different things for you. I mean, I can create an entire Instagram model and create an entire account based on a person that doesn't exist. And are all of these services using Chat GPT and that AI model, or does everyone have their own AI model that they are tweaking?
So there's what's called a foundation model, and those are shared. So as a new, more capable foundation model comes out, then people will try to use that, and then you can tailor it to specific things. I used a term that's not, I haven't
Yeah, yeah.
explained, but like foundation model is the basis of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a foundation model underneath the hood.
But they're a private company who
Mm-hmm.
developed this, right? This doesn't belong
Yeah.
to the world. How does everybody get a hold of using it as a foundation model?
Well, there's a lot of open source models too,
Okay.
that have comparable performance. Um, and so, for example, if I wanted to do it on my website for my business, I would use one of the open source models, and you can just go, and Hugging Face is the platform for all of those. If you want to go browse them, there's thousands of them now.
Oh
Um,
boy.
and so
I just
as
got into 3D printing, Jonathan.
I know. But if you want to get into like the software side of AI, then go to Hugging Face,
Gosh. Okay.
and you'll see what I'm talking about. But basically, there's proprietary models where they know it's cutting edge, and they want to make some money over the next 6 months while it's the best.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then the open source community usually can figure out what's going on in the proprietary model and then add it to Hugging Face at a lag. Um,
Okay.
and it's obviously difficult because many of the larger models now are requiring millions of dollars just to train them. So it's difficult for open source communities to keep up with that cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but often what they're doing is they'll innovate on an existing large language model, a foundation model, find a way to make it small so it can run on a phone or on a laptop, but not lose too much performance. So there's a lot of innovation there in the open source community, and those are the things that a lot of people can use without having to pay anybody.
Okay.
Um, so
All right. What is it with hands?
what is it with hands? Oh,
Yeah.
the fact that it can't that they have
Yeah. Why?
difficulty.
Of everything part of a human body to reproduce for AI, why does it have a problem? Well, actually, maybe people don't know this. I'm going to let you explain the problem, what the situation is, and then answer why is it a situation.
Well, I'm actually not sure why
Okay.
on the some of the image generators that hands are such a problem. But there's there's there for a while they were having difficulty with hands, and I think that time has passed. I
Okay.
think
All
that
right.
the more
That was
capable
last
ones.
month.
Yeah, it was like last month type of a thing. And so that's the other thing about it is it's moving so fast that we have these memes that are going to last a month and then they're gone.
Hmm.
As far as tracking what's going on. Um, so it's like the Gemini thing. If people are familiar with what happened with Google's Gemini,
Okay.
it's an image
Please explain.
generator that no matter what you did, it would not create a white man. You could
Oh,
ask for George
yeah.
you could ask for George Washington, and it would be a black George Washington, and it was not calibrated properly, and so no matter what historical figure you requested, it would diversify it, and
Okay.
um, and I think that is hilarious. Some people got mad and they got upset about it, but the reason that it did that was because Google was worried about getting sued when they ask for a man walking in the park and it's always a white man walking in the
Hmm.
park.
Hmm.
And so they tried to correct that bias in the data set because they have more pictures of white people. And when they corrected that bias, they broke all of the historical figure references and all the historical context for
Uh-huh.
anything else that was involving figures of history. And so it to me, I was laughing. I was like, "This is hilarious," because I know what problem they were trying to solve,
Hmm.
which is trying to accurately represent a generic reality without testing it on historical reality. And they over calibrated to solving for that generic representation and ruin the context of the past, which I think is funny because it's to your point in the beginning, like how do we even control this stuff? Like, do we even know what's going to happen? I was like, no, you don't, because often with AI systems today, you try to fix one problem and you create another. You don't have control over it in the same way that you do with other software, because the problems that it's going to encounter are so general and so diverse that often when you try to make adjustments in one place, it has an unexpected consequence elsewhere.
Okay.
So that's that Gemini story is an example of that. Is like showing, of course, they didn't want to break all of their historical context, but they
Yeah.
did.
So, where is AI going? And the context of this question is not just, you know, what's the future, but there are engineers that are
Mm-hmm.
working day and night on developing AI.
Yeah.
What is their intention? Where do they want to take it? Where do we hope? Where do at least they hope it's going to take us?
Well, I think most people working in the industry, like myself, are more optimists about it. We I believe we need better regulation of it. I think that we need to do our best to mitigate any potential harm due to it. But I believe that it's so powerful and it's so useful that we should use it for the intended purpose. Um, so, like on my team, I think that there's so many ways for us to get rid of the menial tasks that none of us enjoy doing and free us up to do the more interesting work that we actually want to do. And so I think that your example of like photo editing or video editing, maybe you really enjoy that stuff, but if you can reduce some of that and then you focus more on the stories you want to tell, more on the projects that you're actually doing in the physical world,
Mm-hmm.
um, that there's a lot of potential there to free us up to do more of the fun stuff. So the the way that I see it, and I think that a lot of people who work in either data science or AI see it, is that when it's used properly, it can be a very useful tool. And um, just like anything, there are going to be nefarious actors out there that use new technology to further their ends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is what should dominate the conversation. I know that it's absolutely going to happen, and I know that we're going to have to come up with like the AI equivalent of spyware. We're going to have to do all sorts of things in a world where AI is ubiquitous, but we should do them, in my opinion. I
Okay.
think that that's at least the way I see it.
Well, a number of the listeners and viewers of this show may never have touched AI before. And if we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to just dip our toe in it and experiment with AI, what are some good ways of doing that?
Well, I mean, I think they're a lot of fun. So you can just visit some of the websites where they're hosted and interact with the UI just to get a sense for what it can do. Because once you understand what it can do, you can figure out how to use it for your own purposes.
Okay, well, let's
So
go to,
most,
what's one website? Let's
yeah,
give an example.
I mean, you could go to ChatGPT. That's the most popular one.
Okay.
Um, so um, you can go on there and create an account.
And is there any danger to doing that?
I mean, just like any other business,
Okay.
if you create an account, they get your information
Okay.
and they can market to you your robocalls. Really bad robocalls in the case of ChatGPT.
Okay.
Those are now illegal though, so they
Okay.
can't do that.
All right. So I go on ChatGPT. What do I do on ChatGPT?
You ask it questions. You ask it for anything, and you see what you get. So it's
Okay.
just text instructions. Um, it could be like you have the first sentence to a paragraph, and you want the paragraph to be 5 sentences. So you put the first sentence in quotes and say, "Give me a paragraph that continues with this topic for 5 sentences. Give me 5 of them," and then it will generate 5 different paragraphs using that starting sentence.
Why is this free?
It's free because they need it to get better.
I
So
see. Yes,
they're hoping,
because if anybody's listened to the Reptile Entrepreneur podcast, they know that if anything is free, that they are the product. And so,
yeah,
so
yeah.
okay. So how is
I
this?
mean,
What's going
just
on?
just just like when you're using Google, Google is going to make a ton of money off of you using their free service, right?
Okay.
Um, with ChatGPT, they are being one of the most popular brands for AI out there. People use their service and they tell them if it's doing well or not. So there's an
Okay.
opportunity for you in there to say, no, that's not what I wanted. Give me something else. Um, and just by that interactive session, where even if you don't tell it you didn't like their answer, but you asked the question in a slightly different way, that's enough
Okay.
for them to take what you just did and improve so that they give you the right answer the first time. So
Okay. So
the
they're using
they're
us
going
to
to
train the model.
yes.
Okay.
So based on what you put in there, they're going to use that information to get better at what they're doing. Yes.
I see.
And they're trying to use that as a way of staying ahead of all of the competition that's out there
I see.
because nobody else gets that interactive feedback that as they're developing a new model.
Hmm.
And so they have a big advantage now.
How does ChatGPT make money?
Well, I mean, currently make a lot of money um, through enterprise services. So a company can come to them and say, "Hey, we want to use your model to understand all of these millions of PDFs on our server," or like whatever it is that they want to do with ChatGPT. And now they have access to a lot of contracts related to those types of services. Um, they also have services through Microsoft Azure, um, and some other platforms where they make it easy for people to spin up their own user interfaces so that they can put that in their website or use it in other places. And so they have a lot of business relationships where they essentially say, now that we have the best model out there, who wants to use it? And they'll make money on those services, integrating what they do into companies and other things. I'm sure over the next year, that's where a lot of innovation is going to be, is how to make more money with it,
Mhm.
how to use it in different ways that enable them to charge somebody for the services that they provide. But I think they're definitely going to continue on the freemium model for most of us who are just using it, because it helps them more than it helps us. Um, and so they know that people pay a little bit usually for like the newest version. So right
Mhm.
now when you go in there, the free you get 3.5, you can pay to get 4.0. So
Okay.
as they come out with new models, there's a free one that's behind, at like one generation behind, and a paid one that's the current generation.
Is there
So
any way for us to that you would say that we could tell if something is AI generated? And obviously, this answer is going to be different in 2 months because AI gets
yeah.
better. But what are some telltale signs that something is AI generated?
Well, for anybody who's been on my website, there's typos, and there's certain things where you can tell that, like, I had a brain fart, didn't write that sentence great. Um, the AI doesn't do that. AI has none of the human aspects of writing. It's perfect, and it's too
Okay.
perfect. And in the current generation of ChatGPT, it's also has too many adjectives. It's
Okay.
everything is superb and exceptional, and it's a little bit too uh, adverby. So the
It's
that
just the
to
way
me
I
is
live
an
my life, Jonathan.
but
I
but
trained the
like
model too
there's
much.
but you know what I'm saying? Like there's kind of a
Yeah.
tone that you can recognize where you're reading something, and like even after the second sentence, you're like, "Oh, this is AI."
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know how I know that. It's like, okay, what? How do I know this? It's really hard for me to put a finger on how I know it.
I know, but it's too perfect, and it has
Yeah.
the like I said, I think those extra words that, like, there's no human behind it. That's the key. Like when I've heard you talk, and I read how you write, I
Mhm.
know it's you, right? When someone hears me talk and then they see me write, they know it's me. That there's no person behind it. And so obviously for the layperson who doesn't know either of us, they come to the website for the first time, they might have some difficulty, but you can you can kind of look at tone of voice, attitude, all sorts of things that make us who we are. And AI just like they you can request that it emulate you, and then it's really good at putting that into written word too, right? So like once you get into that, then it's hard to recognize that it's coming from AI because it's intentionally trying to copy your tone of voice and the words you generally use. And so that is where it gets really hard for sure. But I think generally speaking, when someone has just taken a bot to generate like an entire website, some of the trashier uses of it, um, the those are easier to recognize in my opinion. So
Yeah, and I know there's these services, and I've looked into them there where they can just generate me, and they say, okay, send in reading all of this, and I read it, and they will generate as close
Yeah.
of a model of me as possible. And, in some ways, that's useful to me because if I go through an entire, like the last episode of
Uh-huh.
my podcast, I talked about AI, but I also talked about the problem where Shopify was kicking people off the platform for live animal sales. And so I was
Yep.
warning everybody, if you use Shopify, you may disappear in the middle
And,
of the
and,
night.
and but you said something else because you had to edit that.
I said Spotify every single time. I said
Oh,
Spotify.
nice.
And
Yeah,
so
I was like, yeah, you had to edit it every time. What happened?
and my wife says, "What's Spotify doing?" I'm thinking, why are you asking me this? Oh no! So I had to go back.
Yeah, see, AI could do that for you.
And I could
AI could do that.
if I
And you
did that
could,
AI.
and you could just tell it, please replace all mentions
Yeah,
of Spotify with Shopify, and it would be done.
and that would be a very useful application
Yep.
of AI for me if I had it all set up. And
Yeah. The other one I've have a couple podcasts I listen to where they really are techno optimists to the top.
Okay.
And they would do things like say they have a cough, like their voice, they have a problem with their voice. They'd start the video or start the podcast saying, I have a cough today. So AI me is going to do the podcast for you. And then they check out and then they come back at the end. And what they would do is they basically write out the podcast
Uh-huh.
or give it some instructions and some other things like different content for the podcast, tell it what they want it to produce. And then it produced the entire podcast in their voice. And I really couldn't tell much of a difference. Like they did a really good job. And so you still listen to the podcast and it's enjoyable because it's still the person that you came to listen to, but it was entirely AI generated because they had a cough.
Yeah. So, yeah,
So-
we got some. I mean, and thing is, that'll make it so easy. But yeah, that's a scary thing. It doesn't have to be me that uses it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, nefarious actors can try to emulate you and things like that. But I think that some of those use cases where real people are using it to solve real problems that they have are really beneficial to us. And so we're just going to have to get creative about finding nefarious actors and making it harder for them to do the thing that they want to do, right? So
at the very least, people are using AI and they're using the image and voice of famous people, and they're making hilarious memes like Joe Biden and Donald Trump going back and forth, and they're creating dialogue that's absolutely hilarious. But what it does is it's so obvious that this is AI generated that it's training people to realize that this is possible. And so that's a positive.
exactly. So
Yeah,
I think that there's a lot of things that we're going to learn and we're going to learn fast, and it's going to be difficult to keep up with. I mean, I think it's the first type of technology for my generation where we're going to get weirded out by how fast we have to learn. If you know what I mean. Like
I know
every
exactly, yeah.
generation has these things that come along that just like fundamentally shake you to the core. And our generation has kind of been riding the internet and riding social media. We haven't had any of these things come along where we're like, geez, we're not comfortable with this. Like this is really kind of shaking our understanding of the world in a way that, we're either going to have to adjust to or have some difficulty with. And I feel like AI is that thing for us. It's like far enough in our life where we're like, what? We don't like this change.
Yeah.
Why is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? I don't want to have to learn this new thing. And so like, at least that's how my perspective is. It is something we're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and for everyone out there, this is an entrepreneur podcast. This is a show to help you make it in the world. And I will tell you from my experience, I've been around long enough. I saw the creation of the internet. I saw the creation of social media. And in both of those instances, it was a great filtering of the population as to who is going to be lost and who goes forward. And literally, when the internet came on, that divided the entire population into who is just going to fade into the distance and who's going to ride the wave forward. Social media was the next thing to happen, to where, and each one of these things, it was tough to say, okay, wait a minute, now I got to change everything and I got to learn something from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm letting you know right now, AI is the next one. And so I think the only thing we can say is dive in, figure it out, understand it, and even if you don't know how you're going to use it, just start playing with it and get familiar with it.
Yep.
So
I completely agree with that perspective, Bill.
And we're seeing it. You're at the start of it right now, of the dividing line again. And so just make the choice. It's not easy, but just do it, or else you're going to be in the past. So, all right, Jonathan, is there anything else we need to leave the people with?
No, I think that if you do have some cool ideas related to AI in your business, I'm here. I love those types of conversations. So, for example, I know I have thousands of images on my website that I want to watermark, and I feel like AI can help me with that.
Good idea.
So just like random things that I know I want to do, and I'm just like, that's a good problem for AI, bad problem for me because I waste a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And if the more that we as entrepreneurs can come up with those types of ideas, share them with each other, it's probably going to be a lot of small things, but that save us a ton of time, and make us more efficient as business owners and reptile enthusiasts. So,
well, Jonathan, I've got about 50,000 photos on my iPhone. Do you think AI could help me tag all of those so I could search for it? Effectively search?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They could definitely help you with tagging, and even coming up with good captions and things, like where you can't even think of a good caption for it, but it could give you 5 suggestions. That type of stuff is really useful.
Yep. All right. So that's what I'm going to look into. All right, Jonathan, I want to say thank you so very much for coming on and helping explain this new technology. So, wait a minute.
For having me.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to continue this conversation?
Well, the easiest place is go to my website, iPardalis.com. I have all of my social media accounts along the top, and I'm pretty active on Facebook, Instagram, starting to try on YouTube. I posted like twice. Yeah, I posted twice on TikTok. And I hate it, but that's something I need to get comfortable with, I guess. But yeah, any of those things, I'm on there and available. So,
okay, great. Thank you very much. And everybody, here's to your future artificial life.